This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Welcome into the Triple Option. As I'm not sure Pierre can totally see me yet or not. I had to restart the old computer here, and that prevented me from joining the Zoom meeting. There we go. Now you can maybe see my face as opposed to the back of me or like just part of me over there.
I mean, there's no better side profile in the business than Paul Catalina. Let me tell you, everybody. I seriously,
I would fight that. I would fight that assertion.
What's up, guys?
I was going to listen. We get 2 days in a row of Pierre.
Yeah.
And Pierre, we like to start out with small talk. We don't like to get right into the meat and potatoes of the day.
No.
But I feel it. I'm very European about this. You know, when you are in a business meeting in Europe, as you and I have been on many.
Correct.
many different business meetings, especially in Switzerland or France or places like this. You have a little bit of small talk and chit chat before you get down to business. It's only considered polite. You don't just dive right into it like some sort of barbarian or animal. You know,
no.
You have a little bit of time. And as you and I are very cultured individuals, you know,
indeed,
very cultured individuals who I would bet between the two of us have seen multiple episodes of South Park and Crank Yankers, you know, like the Downton Abbey of the, 35 to 45-year-old dude. That's us. We're cultured. Yeah. So we're going to have some small talk beforehand.
Absolutely. Yeah. I wish we would adopt the European tradition of the afternoon siesta as well after work. I enjoy that. That would be tremendous for so many of us.
Yeah. I mean, especially look, here's the deal. In your business alone, you're doing 6 and 10, which means you're going to be up late because you can't just and you're on last. Very rarely are you going to be on first. Something like the Timberwolves, the Vikings, the Twins being in the postseason has to happen that day for you to be on first. And quite often now, if that happens, you have to share that time with one of those nerds from the news department, which I don't think is fair.
Right. Yeah. In all likelihood, yes, that is a fair assessment you've made. Yes.
Yes. So let's go to Pierre, who's been doing nothing for 365 days, but following this particular team, all their off-season moves and anything. We're going to give him 90 seconds, but we're going to give 4 minutes to Julia out in the plaza. And Julia's extent of Vikings games pretty much begins and ends with her boyfriend goes to them. But Julia, how's it going? What's the feeling out there in the plaza out in front of the stadium? And she's like, look, all these people are yelling skull and drinking beer, and it's amazing. I talked to so-and-so, and he's got one leg, and he's thrilled to be there. And then Pierre's like, well, Justin Jefferson's not going to play in this game, but that's neither here nor there. Let's talk about this guy.
Correct. Yeah, that's a stunningly accurate interpretation of how things play out sometimes. And like I said, I have no problem saying this, on the air. Fans, I've said this for years. Fans are better seen and not heard. That is absolutely my feeling on all of that. Yeah.
Let's get some really searing insight from this guy who at 11:30 a.m. is 8 beers deep, and he's going to go skull, and then that's it. That's all you got.
only for him to realize as he sobers up later in the day that he didn't mean to be on camera because he called out sick, and now his boss probably saw him on TV.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. That's how it goes. But you have to be on at 10:30. You're on at about 10:24, 10:23 each night.
Yep.
Around there. And then you do your few minutes. They go back to the weather guy and make some kind of joke, and then you've got to laugh, and then everybody goes away. That's local news. Yes. I really should be a news consultant. We have talked about this for years because I could cut out a lot of the stuff that you guys are doing, and it would make everybody happier.
Local news hasn't changed in 60 years, and it's almost hard to wonder why we're dying.
Yeah.
It's just so hard to figure out
why. and the thing is, here's why I'm a good consultant. Because I have nothing to do with it. I've never been on local news. I've been on it, but I've never worked it. I've been on with you before on your show.
Yes, you have.
Yeah, I've been on with you, but I'm always an outside expert. I'm like the guy they call in a court case when they're like, well, you examined the body, and we brought you in from Denver, and this is not, you're an expert in your field. Tell us what you think. Oh, there's no way he could have done it. That's me. That's who I am when it comes to local news.
Right.
I just pop in. But I think because I'm an outside, like they should hire me as the outside consultant, and then I just sit through a couple of your newscasts each week, and then I'll be like, listen, you got to give more. My first advice, you got to give more time to the sports guy. He's rushing through this here, and there's some really good, interesting local stories you can get out of sports. And then he has to sacrifice telling scores to do this story. Just let him go. Give him 5 whole minutes. He'll be fine.
Yeah. I feel like you should be a ringer, a ringer consultant that travels the country, because in my experience, my thoughts on consultants. So I just love it when they come down.
Yeah.
It's just, and yet things don't really change much. I keep hearing why it's everybody's fault in the building, why the ratings are bad, and then the consultants come in and they give us their 2 pieces, and yet either 2 things happen. Either nothing changes, or we take that advice and nothing changes.
Yeah.
So it's I don't know what you want me to do here, pal.
They'll be like, Dennis, more red ties on the news desk.
Right.
People like red ties. And you're like, well, maybe you just be better at doing the news. I'm just saying. And
could be.
Believe me,
yeah.
if you let me, the evenings I'm very interested in fixing, but if you let me go into local morning news, they might call me Freddie Flamethrower, because I'll be like, this is all gone.
Yeah. And people don't even understand how much of a 2 different world atmosphere we live in within our own building when it comes to morning news and evening news.
It's
2 different worlds.
You have to and again, and this is not even you, you're not there's very rarely morning sports, and usually if it's morning sports, it is something big that's happening.
It's pre-taped probably from the night before, or if something is happening later that day, it's all hands on deck. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all hands on. That's a big deal. The Vikings are in the NFC Championship game. The Twins are in the playoffs. There's
correct.
And that's what it is. But if it's just a Wednesday in April and nothing's going on and the teams aren't good, you don't they'll have to write down Pierre, the sports guy. Yeah.
Correct. Correct.
They have the little index card of we've got Pierre and this person, and those are our 3 sports people. Don't forget their names when you go to them on air, even though you'll be able to see the chyron in your screen. You just don't forget it and go.
You're not wrong.
Yeah.
You are not wrong.
Because you guys never see each other.
Hardly ever.
And look, to their credit, you probably don't know their name that well either, because you travel in completely different circles. The only time you see each other at the Christmas party. That's it. That's all.
Yes.
It's kind of how it is.
Fair. Yeah.
And morning news, and from news to news, I think it's very funny when you look at morning news and evening news. Evening news has got to be tragedy struck tonight when a 75-car pileup hit the highway. And then morning news is hey, are eggs and juice the best breakfast for you? We'll find out later on.
Yeah.
But first up, we're going to get a look at the wacky weather forecast, and, it's going to be unseasonably warm here. And then that's what you have. It's completely different programming.
I almost feel like there are times where I just feel our morning news, is the morning news trying to cater to children? You almost talk to the audience like they're children. That's a very oh man, could pancakes actually be better for your health? It is the weirdest ensemble of information that pours out of a news station in the hours between 5 a.m. and 10 a.m.
Yes.
It's just it's a different world entirely.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so strange. It's funny to me to see the ones that intermix inside Good Morning America or something like that.
Yeah.
Because Good Morning America does most of that stuff too. But I do like days where and this is very dark, but I have no problem admitting it, where they have to report on a serious story, And then like later on, Michael Strahan and Lady Gaga are going to take a tour of her hometown church.
It's like, part of me doesn't blame them because, who wants to start their morning off with a murder story? Like, I get it. I understand it. But it's just like sometimes I just think I was like, I feel like we're dumbing down society in the morning. I really do.
Yeah. They really
do.
And the thing in the morning, this is a local morning. If there's a nursing home fire or something, they run through that story so fast because they are not comfortable doing it because it's not what they have to do, and they've got to keep the mood high. So, like, the nursing home fire. Let's go to Denise on the scene. Denise gives her report, and then they have to downshift so fast to what's fun at springtime? Peeps.
There are only two things in between the hours of 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. There are only two things that matters to a local viewer: the weather and traffic. Yeah. Those are the two. That's it. You could do an entire 3 hours of like, what's the weather right now and what's the traffic? Right. That's exactly what it is.
Most of the time, if you go to your local, like your guide, there's a local TV station now, most places in the country that have bought the top level of it. And all it is the weather and traffic and what else is on television.
That's exactly what it is.
Yes.
That's exactly what it is.
So you can see the weather and the traffic, and you can see like, Dawson's Creek on TBS. What do you know about that? That's how it is.
Exactly. A classic. Well, for you kids watching at home, you don't even know what that show is.
Yeah, exactly. Dawson's Creek. If you were an angsty teenager in the 90s.
Oh yeah.
Dawson's Creek.
Yeah. That's right.
Or if you weren't an angsty teenager and just liked Katie Holmes, Dawson's Creek.
Yeah.
I think
it's crazy to think about how Michelle Williams turned out to be like the biggest star from that show as well.
Yeah. I mean, she's doing like Oscar caliber stuff. They're all like
A-list movie star. She is.
Yeah. They're all doing good stuff, but she's doing stuff where like if Michelle Williams is in something, like it matters.
It does.
Yeah. Unless it's Venom.
Agree more.
And then but everybody's got to get a paycheck movie.
We probably have to dedicate an entire show to the comic book verse of movies and just how it's over. In my opinion, it is over. It is over for the comic.
I actually think it's about to restart. I'm a big
You think so?
I'm a big James Gunn fan. He's over doing DC stuff now. So he was the last good thing about Marvel, and now he's over at DC and running it. I have faith that will. But
DC has been spinning its wheels forever and ever, and I never could understand why it couldn't get off the ground.
Here's the problem. When you have suits making decisions, it never is good. In anything.
No,
in anything. I'll tell you, for sports, it's not good at all.
No,
sports is not good at all. In fact, we'll get into our first topic now, which is more of a suits decision than anything else. We're going to talk about Eric Bieniemy. He's on his way as the offensive coordinator, associate head coach to UCLA, which is very interesting for a lot of different regards, and we'll get into that in the next segment. But Friday, Pierre, the NCAA took another blow in their never-ending string of losses. Now, they haven't completely lost this lawsuit, but the one thing, and this is why this one is very severe, the one thing they have consistently fought and has been a tenet of what the NCAA has been about from the very beginning is you cannot induce a recruit to come to a school. Like, even when they passed the NIL rules, it was, these are not supposed to be inducements. This is supposed to be for their actual commercial value. Now, we all knew that was just a facade because there's a lot of different ways to write a contract and say like, oh no, we're totally interested in this kid for what he can do for our business. What business do you have? Well, we'll pick one out for him. We don't know what fits him, but there's a bunch of us here who own businesses. If he's a car guy or a store guy or a restaurant guy, we'll figure that out in the back end. But it's all about getting the recruits in the house. Well, this ruling that in the Tennessee and Virginia lawsuit, antitrust lawsuit against the NCAA, basically says the NCAA can enforce none of their NIL rules. None while this is going on. And I think this should be the point where the suits go, all right, we have been fighting this for a long time. We are not winning. We are losing. So let's all get together and hammer this thing out as quickly and reasonably as we can. while still making a system that works and create a new thing. Because it's weird that you spent all this time and money fighting, giving $600 a piece to kids over a video game, or that, if you had just agreed to this 20 years ago, kids were asking for like $2,500 a month. I mean, like if you had given them $2,500 to $4,000 a month, depending on your, the levels with like increasing cost of living stuff, we may not be having this argument right now, where NIL is only really available to those athletes that are actually, notable. So like Caleb Williams gets it, but the third quarterback doesn't. That's how it does. But now they spent more money on lawyers than they would have just give it to the players anyway. And
great point.
I mean, so anyway, but your thoughts on what the NCAA needs to do to reshuffle this deck, because the old system, I think, was given its final little old Yeller shotgun to the brain on Friday. Like, that's it. Like, that should be your indication that it's over. So before other suits get involved, like the government really gets involved, build a plan that will keep them away from you.
It's funny how you said, you didn't mean to get dark earlier. I don't mean to get dark now, but this almost feels like the ending of a war. Like we're at the end of war. It is treaty time now.
Yes.
It's time to drop the plans of the exit plans and the divvying up of whether it's land, goods, whatever. It's time to draw up the contract of we surrender or at best for the NCAA, we concede this amount of things to somehow keep us alive moving forward. And I don't know at this point now, the first thing that came to my mind when talking about this story is, how many years does the NCAA have left now at this point? It almost feels like it is a matter of time before the institution itself just completely crumbles, or it has to undergo and realize that it has to fully re-identify itself moving forward in a new plan and just finally concede to the fact that the world is changing. Things have to be adjusted now. And the old ways and the day-to-day way, the day-to-day operations and the way of doing business no longer apply. They no longer apply. So now it's time to readjust and refocus, because if they don't, I already think they're going to crumble. I think a lot of people think it's just only a matter of time before the NCAA ceases to exist. But if they want to keep themselves afloat, or continue to have some form of semblance of being some type of association that has a hand and get some kind of financial benefit from all of this as well, they have to re-identify themselves in a hurry.
They do. They do. I mean, it's and look, Charlie Baker has proposed like another tier of the NCAA that works. And look, there might be a group of universities who the old rules somewhat work for, because they're not talking about these like very high dollar, athletes that are worth all this money. But at the same time, like, again, you were going to run up against, like, they're not running up against the one side thinks it should be this way and one side thinks it should be the opposite anymore. They're running up against the laws that apply in every walk of life to regular citizens. They're trying to say they don't apply to student athletes, and that has been over and over and over again. You cannot create a special thing that deprives people of their rights because they're playing a sport. That's the problem. So everybody who's like, oh, NIL is bad, or this is like old-fashioned, like I can't believe this, think of it this way. If you're an insurance agent and there were special laws for insurance agents that had nothing to do with you corrupting the insurance business, but were just keeping you from making, like, oh, if you're an insurance agent, you cannot have a side job at a bakery that your wife owns. Like, you can't do that. Like, you can't own a bakery and be an insurance agent. You can only be an insurance agent. That's all you can do. Now, listen, mortgage brokers, they can do whatever they want. Bankers, they can do whatever they want. Firemen, they can do whatever they want. But you're an insurance agent. You have a whole different thing. And you're like, why? Well, because it's a different thing. It's insurance. You're like, well, I don't understand. That's what they're doing.
It's like being an importer-exporter, and you're trying to focus on the importing, but but you're having trouble letting go of the exporting. Yes.
Yeah. What do you import and export?
Yeah. Chips.
And what do you export? Matches.
Matches.
Long
Yeah.
matches. Long matches. Long matches. Chips. That was a great. Yeah. Oh, anyway. But yeah, you have all these things and you can't do that. So eventually there was going to be a smart enough legal mind, and not just one, many smart legal minds that said, hey, let's stop trying to apply why this is draconian based on the rules of student athletes. Let's just take student athlete out of the equation when you're talking about what the noun is in the sentence and put anything else in it, and it doesn't work. So
It doesn't. And one thing I want to point out too is you kind of mentioned it earlier with the Caleb Williamses of the world. And when it comes to football and men's basketball, we all know that these are the two pillars of college athletics that really support the rest of college athletics as well. And lost in the shuffle of this are the lacrosse players and the baseball players and the swimmers and things like that, who don't really get a chance to make big money off of their own NIL and stuff like that. And there are so many athletes that want to get an education or benefit from the full ride or whether it's full scholarship, half scholarship, what have you. And I tend to worry about those athletes too, that kind of get, well, what does this mean for the rest of them as well? If these quote unquote academic institutions not crumble, but completely alter their way of doing business. That's also something that constantly gets lost in the mix.
Yeah, absolutely. It is very, and part of the thing that the NCAA was doing was hurting the lacrosse players and the swimmers too. I remember, and this has been probably 15 years ago now, or maybe a little bit less, but there was a kicker at UCF, and he wasn't even he had just started becoming the starter the year before. And he was doing funny videos on YouTube, and he had to quit YouTube, or he had to quit the team because he was making so much money on YouTube. He was in the first wave of influencers, and the NCAA, you can't do that. And it's well, I mean, none of these videos even really have anything to do. He started his base by being the UCF kicker and having UCF fans and other students be oh, look at the kicker. He's funny. He's, eating a spicy chicken wing, that kind of thing. And it got it that, fed into more of the stuff of all right, you're not going to let him have a YouTube page? There's awful people out there who have YouTube pages.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're not going to,
Heaven forbid.
Yeah. You're not going to have a YouTube page. This is starting to get silly. And, all those things. Well, that's where the NIL comes in for those athletes. If you have a following on social media for whatever, whether it's being a swimmer or just being a good-looking human being, and you happen to be a swimmer or a diver or a lacrosse player or whatever, and people, and they say hey, drink this Olipop. It's like soda, but without all the stuff in it. Who cares? Who cares?
It's funny that you mentioned that exactly too, because I've been saying our Minnesota has their place kicker, Dragan Kesic, and their punter, Mark Crawford, who is almost 30 years old and from Australia. I've spoken with them both individually, and these two guys are the funniest guys. I've said to them, how do the two of you not have a show together? I've been constantly we have to. I've gone to our boss and said, we have to get these guys on TV. We have to. These guys are stars in the making. And to think that 10 years ago, if we couldn't get them on, or we couldn't come up with this concept because of all the rules surrounding the NCAA, it seems that feels 100 years ago now. It really does. It feels 100 years ago.
Well, Pierre, you're in the right place, because this is a place where we could set something like that up and have no pushback. So,
no doubt about it.
Yeah, you get us all on a Zoom together, and we'll figure something out. I promise you that.
No, I think we can make so. I've been trying to make this happen for 2 years, and I think this year might be the year.
Yeah,
so
just go ahead and talk to them, and we'll because again, now we can. Here's the great thing about this: we can talk about this, and we're not getting those two kids in trouble. Of course, one of them,
we're not.
One of them probably has kids of his own. He's 37 years old, but but we're not getting them in trouble. There used to be just even talking about it. I remember we've had many athletes here over the years, Baylor, MCC, even that have great personalities, and I thought we could just I mean, it wouldn't be like you can't get them on, but if we could just pay this kid for a weekly segment just to come on and talk about their experience. I did when King McClure, who's at ESPN now, when King was finishing up at Baylor.
He's at ESPN now?
Yeah, he's at ESPN.
I didn't realize that. Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
King's at ESPN. He's doing a great job. Okay. Garrett's worked a little with King. King wanted to start his podcast, and he had these great contacts. He'd done some great internships, and we had some really big people like Clark Kellogg and Holly Rowe, and he had like 6 different kids that were like went lottery pick in the NBA draft, just because basketball more than any other sport has this like really like tight-knit community that's like interspersed really like wild, where you're like, well, how do you know that kid? Like, oh, he's from here and here and here, and his cousin and my brother played on the AAU team together.
The AAU connections run deep.
Like, oh, we've been great friends for 10 years. And you're like, what?
Right.
How?
Yeah.
Like,
And they're from like 2 different states and stuff. Like, it's crazy. Yeah.
We talk all the time. And like, he'll show me a text chain with like,
you're exactly right. Your assessment is absolutely spot on.
Like it was like, I think it was him and Anthony Edwards had like one like this, and I was like, how do you even know that guy?
Yeah.
It's like, we can't get him, he's too busy, but he had, and this is in the pre-NIL era, he had Jared Butler and Freddie Gillespie come in and talk about what the real life as a student athlete was like. And it was one of the best podcasts that I've ever been a part of. And I was just producing it. I was just sitting there listening to these 2 current and 1 very recently former student athlete talk about it. And all I could think about was like, well, if we could pay them for this, like that would make a little bit of their burden easier, and
absolutely.
Like I don't think people even realize, like, back in the day, it was easy for college kids to have like a college basketball player to have a girlfriend and do normal girlfriend things.
Yeah.
Listening to those 2 talk, like they both had girlfriends, but they're like, having to explain to them over and over again, like, no, I'm sorry, I can't go to that thing. I have this thing. Like it's a full, like it's a 365-day a year nearly job. And if you're going to sign, like, again, players' wives and coaches' wives kind of become the same thing, like, in the professional levels, where you're just going to have to deal with, like, the schedule is different. And I was really amazed at that. And like, again, you're saying like, we can't just give these guys a couple $100 for doing this. So what benefits here? It's just so all these things they fought against were for nothing. I mean, right now, like if you're the NCAA and you've been fighting against this, you have to feel like, well, what were we even doing? Because we've totally lost. And the U.S. government in multiple states and the federal government doesn't support us at all. That's it. It's over. It's done.
Yeah.
And trying to say, like, their argument essentially just always boils down to is, well, we don't want it that way. Well, no.
It doesn't work that way.
No, you can't. Like, we don't want it that way is not the argument you have to have in court. Like, why? Like, if you take it, like, why do you think that Emory robbed the bank? Like, well, I just want him to be guilty. Well, no, you have to prove it that he, he's the guy who walked in and walked out with the cash. You can't just say, I really want it to be him because I don't like him. Like, he has a look about him that says bank robber. Okay, you still have to prove he's a bank robber.
And I hate this is a dumb comparison. I hate to use it, but I just keep coming back around to it. This feels like the end of war. It feels like the tail end. You are hanging on to whatever you were fighting for so long, but it's over. The enemies are at the gate, so to speak.
Yeah.
It is done. It's a done deal.
No.
You just surrender now.
Yes, exactly. Surrender, build the new thing. Start with your Marshall Plan, so to speak, and go on.
Yeah.
There's your historical reference of the day, the Marshall Plan. Probably not taught in high schools as much as it should be anymore. Thanks, government.
That's what I want people listening and watching just to know the beauty of this show, how we can interject, history, Seinfeld, and sports within a half hour of, this entire show. Where else are you going to get that?
No, you're not. It's not like we're like a buffet restaurant of high-end stuff. Like, we're like Golden Corral, but without the post-game diarrhea. That's what we are.
No, correct. I would say we're a step above Golden Corral. We're still striving to be like the Caesars buffet, but we'll get there one day.
The Palladium, You would think I know exactly what it's called. I've been there many times.
It's delicious. It's fantastic.
Yeah. The Palladium has if you've never been there, so it's it's the very fancy buffet and it's beautiful.
It is.
But if you took take the Golden Corral and move it up 50 notches. And instead of just a high school kid dumping shrimp into from one container into another one, there's a 5-star chef making some sort of shrimp in a pan with fire and brandy or something and some kind of seasonings. And then he's like, "Oh, how many shrimp you want?" You're like, "I don't know, 10." And he's like, "All right, wha."
Yeah.
There you go.
You'll understand why you paid the amount of money you paid at the Caesars buffet after you're done eating. You'll understand.
Yeah, absolutely. You're like, "Oh, hey, how do you like your steak? Medium rare." And it's just like, all right. Take him down, Carl.
That's right.
That's it. It's unbelievable. All right, when we come back, Eric Bieniemy, still not an NFL head coach, and is in fact moving to college at UCLA as their offensive coordinator under new head coach Deshaun Foster. This is the triple option on 365 Sports.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and your business moving at the speed of light. Whatever you need, we can build it. Internet, Metro Ethernet, Waves, dark fiber. We deliver custom private networks and are focused on business customers only. Our next generation 100% fiber optic infrastructure offers you low latency and ultra scalable bandwidth with speeds up to 100 gigabit to run your critical applications. Your connection won't be limiting your performance anymore. It's diverse and scalable, so it can grow and change as your business grows and changes. And with a secure carrier-grade private network, you'll have all the reliability you need. Contact UPN today to learn more. Fast just got faster.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Welcome back, 365 Sports. By the way, I finally got to Foster Pavilion this weekend, which is Baylor's new basketball arena. Pierre, look it up. I mean, you'll be kind of blown away. At least I think you've seen it.
I watched the game. I watched the tail end of the second half and overtime.
Oh, you mean the good part of the game?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I did. And actually, I was a little. It's funny. It struck me because that's the new arena, because of the camera view seemed like it was perched a little higher.
It's a little high. That's the beef that a lot of people have about it, and that happened because literally, a week before it opened was the days that anybody could get in to actually assess these things. It's still, especially most of the inside, I would say, is done for where fans would ever go.
When did it open?
End of the year, right when conference season started. So
got it. Okay,
they played the first half of the season in Farrell, and then they moved over. So outside, and this is not just the arena. They've been doing construction on University Park since you lived here. So it's just all down that street. There's just tons of construction. So once they get all that done, it's going to look unbelievable. And I'm not just talking about the stadium, but just that area of downtown is going to look really, really cool.
Right.
But I went there, it was great. But they have to, Mac Rhodes told us they're going to work on changing the camera angle because it does feel like you're way up there. I can tell you, because that's where my seats are, that it is when you first get there, you feel like, oh, this is the camera angle, because we're right, it's only a row behind where I sit off to the left of me. So it's right there. It's a great arena. If you're a college basketball fan, I think you'll love it. Even if you're not a Baylor fan, there were two Kentucky fans sitting right in front of me, wearing Kentucky, and I know that because they're wearing Kentucky hoodies. And Eric Bieniemy in 1 second. Real quick.
Yeah.
What is your policy? Because I think you and I are the same.
Yeah.
If you and I were going to, let's just say we were going to a Celtics Wizards game in Washington, D.C. You and I are just in Washington, D.C. Somebody says, hey, you want these 2 tickets or good seats at the Celtics Wizards? I'm not a Celtics fan or a Wizards fan, nor are you.
Neither am I. Yes, correct.
And say you have your Sacramento Kings hoodie in the suitcase, and I've got my Spurs hoodie in my suitcase. Do we wear those hoodies, or do we do the thing that normal, rational human beings who shouldn't be committed to an institution do, and wear neutral clothes for teams that aren't playing, because we support teams that aren't playing in the game and are not even in that same area?
We will do the latter, and the best, the biggest leeway I will give somebody, it's like you said, you're a Spurs fan, I'm a Kings fan. The most I will give you is just wear a T-shirt that says basketball across the front. Just wear that.
Just wear a T-shirt that says basketball. NBA T-shirt. Just NBA.
Fine. Yeah. No, we're not. No. Hi. Do you see the Spurs on the court anywhere? Do you see the Kings on the court anywhere? No, you don't. What are you doing wearing their gear? No. It's a complete. You and I have talked about this. That is a complete violation of sports fan etiquette. No, absolutely not.
I was at a Rangers game 6-7 years ago.
Right.
And the Rangers were playing the Red Sox. And there was a guy like one row ahead of me, like 5 or 6 seats down. And it was very distracting because he was wearing a Florida Marlins jersey. And I'll even give it look, if that guy's jersey is playing for one of the teams and you like him and you have a so-and-so jersey, you could with the counsel of Paul and Pierre, you can file that with a council, and we'll deal with it.
There'll be a hearing on that at a later date.
But look, if you wore a Mookie Betts Red Sox jersey to a Dodgers game, I don't love it, but I can wrap my head around it because you're kind of there for him and not everybody else.
Yeah, and like I said, this is to say that we're not unreasonable people. No. We're not unreasonable people.
But he was wearing a Jeff Conine Marlins jersey.
What a pull.
I was first of all, he hadn't played in 20 years. Second of all, he's not in the stadium. I promise you that. He's not working. He doesn't work for either one of these teams. I know that for a fact. He's not even a scout somewhere else for one of these two teams.
Yeah.
He's not here. What are you doing?
Yeah, your reaction was the same exact as mine with the player jersey. I was like, you're not going to get me to bend here, but at the same time, too, I kind of sort of get it, but I don't know if that's enough to get me to bend.
I mean, you're going to have to really make a case for this is why I love this player so much.
Right. Yes. Maybe there has to be a very personal connection.
Or maybe you're there with all your friends. Maybe this guy's played for 4 teams and there's 4 of you there, and you're all going to wear the different jerseys of this guy.
Creative.
Creative.
I like that.
We love this player. He's a bit of a journeyman, but I'll just say David Justice. You love David Justice, and you wear different David Justice jerseys. He was a good player who played for Kenny Lofton, played for a bunch of teams. You've got a bunch of guys that to me. But I couldn't I'm sitting there right in front of me, and the whole time, and they got there late, and then. Second half, I'm the game got really good. I'm just watching these guys, and I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Right. What are you doing?
Maybe you could put some Kentucky socks on so you can still rep your team and I don't have to see them. But you and your buddy in Kentucky, what are you, scouting? You're scouting? What are you doing? You don't know, exactly I can tell you. These guys know John Calipari like I know Jennifer Aniston.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't.
No, they don't. Yeah, no, we're that should be an open and shut case for us. I think we've made our stance pretty clear.
Yes, we're the council on these kind of matters.
Yes, agreed.
All right, Eric Bieniemy going to UCLA as the offensive coordinator. There is a lot of hands across America for Eric Bieniemy and him not getting a head coaching job, and I somewhat subscribe to that belief that he should be an NFL head coach. And he's gotten lots of opportunity. And I subscribe to the belief that the NFL has been very slow on minority hiring, and they could do a lot better with it. But when you look at this most recent coaching cycle of a guy like Raheem Morris getting his much well-deserved second shot, who I think is going to be great in Atlanta, and we're going to talk about the Falcons in the next segment.
Gerard Mayo
getting his shot. Look, I mean, Dave Canales, look, Robert Saleh, Mike McDaniel. Like, there's a lot of, like, there's a good chunk of the league that they have started to veer in that direction. And this particular coaching hiring cycle was very, very much at GMs. There's more minority GMs. There's been more minority head coaches. So I think the NFL, and I'm very reticent to give them compliments on a lot of things, because when it comes to the NFL office, especially the NFL website, they're woefully behind on that, and they keep getting called out about it, and they're kind of like ignoring it. But not kind of ignoring it, they're totally ignoring it. But when it comes to coaches, I don't think Eric Bieniemy is a victim of that. I think Eric Bieniemy is not a good interviewer, and I think that there are things going around about him, or that the people in the league know, that just does not enable them to put the guy who helped coach Patrick Mahomes into a head coaching position. There's something that we don't know, and that's what I wonder about. And he's a really good play caller. I mean, I think he did okay in Washington. I don't think the players in Washington really liked his style that much. They weren't used to it. That doesn't mean he's wrong. It just wasn't a good fit. And again, they made changes anyway, so Dan Quinn wasn't going to keep him. So I think he'll be back in the NFL, but whether he's a head coach again, it's going to depend on a lot of things. And part of it, I think, is he's kind of rough on the guys. And I don't know if that's works as much as it used to in the NFL.
I'm with you pretty much 100% here. I was of the belief, especially in the last couple of years, whenever Eric Bieniemy was the topic of conversation on, whether it's sports talk radio, whether it's on TV, people kept talking about Eric Bieniemy as like it's absolute ludicrous that he's not a head coach. And then I thought to myself, well, if he's interviewed a bunch of times, and if he's, like we were talking about earlier with basketball players kind of having their own tight-knit circle, the coaching circle in the NFL, in college, all of these guys know each other. They all know each other very well. So there are plenty of coaches that can speak on their relationships with previous coaches, future coaches. Everybody talks to everybody in terms of, oh, I really like this guy, or this guy's going to be the next up and comer, stuff like that. So that definitely made me think that there's something percolating within the coaching conversation, that there's something about Eric Bieniemy that is, whether it's his style, whether it's personality, there's something that, like you said, that we don't know, that is preventing him from getting a head coaching job. I was surprised that he took the offensive coordinator job with Washington to begin with. There wasn't a ton of talent there at quarterback to really work with, so I didn't think that was going to be a good fit for him to begin with. Is he a victim of Andy Reid's success? Is it, how much of it is, well, Andy Reid's a Hall of Fame coach.
Well, Andy's always calling those plays.
Right, exactly. So it's like, how much you have to think, how much of Eric Bieniemy is really implemented here with Patrick Mahomes, with the Chiefs offense? I think that's a fair question to ask. So I always come back around to, if he was really a great candidate now, if he was really a sought after coach now, somebody would have hired him. Yeah. There's nothing preventing an NFL owner right now from looking at Eric Bieniemy and thinking to yourself, wait, if this guy's really got the goods, I want him right now. He would have been hired 3 years ago.
Yeah. There are now it's a record for 2024. And I think it's going to, I think, keep going up. Mostly also because the assistant coach, like that's the other thing, is they had to hire more minority assistant coaches. There's more minority assistant coaches now than there ever have been. And that's how you get the head coaching job. You don't just like get anointed a head coach at one point in your life. But Raheem Morris, Gerard Mayo, Antonio Pierce, Mike Tomlin, Todd Bowles, D'Amico Ryans, Dave Canales, Mike McDaniel, and Robert Saleh. Those are your So there's 9 right now. And like a year ago, I bought the argument a little bit because there were only like 5 at the time. But now they've almost doubled the whole thing.
I think there was only 3 at one point. I want to say
only 3 at one point. Yeah, so only 3. So yeah, I was kind of buying it then. But like now that there's 9, I do think that like argument doesn't hold as much water. And it's just for whatever reason, none of these teams want Eric Bieniemy to be their head coach.
And you know what, Paul? I want to that point too. On top of it, this is a very true statement that I have constantly believed in. There are people, a la Josh McDaniels, who are much better suited being a coordinator than a head coach. It's not for everybody.
Yeah,
like just because somebody might be a great offensive mind does not translate to you being a head coach at the National Football League level. Sometimes it just doesn't translate. Some people are better served as coordinators. Like, look at Monty Kiffin back in the day.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many people really gave him an opportunity to be a head coach in the league, but he's a Hall of Fame defensive coordinator type coach.
Yeah.
Like, so it's some people are just not cut out for being a head coach. Some people just aren't. That's not to say Eric Bieniemy isn't, but there is an argument or a conversation to be had that some coordinators are better suited as coordinators and not head coaches.
All right. I'm going to skip the break here, Garrett.
Okay.
Because I do want that 60 seconds in this. We have not talked about, and we'll talk about it at the end, so that we can stay on the NFL track and we don't hop all over the place. We'll do NFL draft rapid fire here. And then one thing we have not brought up, which we should have, is I want Pierre's opinion on court storming. Because it's now a major issue with Kyle Filipowski getting injured. And I have a very, I'm not 100% against it and I'm not 100% for it. I believe there should be conditions. And I think you and I are the same in that. Like, you've got to make them count. But anyway, NFL draft rapid fire. We talked about the Vikings on Thursday, and that's the team that you cover. And they are at a point where they need to kind of maybe admit where they are. The Broncos and Falcons have similar the Broncos have a very similar quarterback issue, except for the fact that they can't just decide to walk away. They have to trade or release Russell Wilson. The Falcons are without a quarterback, but the Broncos and Falcons, the Falcons pick 8th and the Broncos pick 11th, which is, I believe, right before the Vikings.
The Broncos pick 12. The Vikings pick 11. Vikings pick 11. Yeah.
So, right after the Vikings. So the Broncos and Vikings, in particular, like these three teams, and you can throw the Raiders, but I want to kind of save them for a different day. The Raiders at 13, right behind that, in this 4 teams that definitely need a quarterback and definitely would love to draft a quarterback, but it may not be the year 4. Well, for the Falcons, I think it is. I think
the Bears pick at 9. Who's picking at 10?
Hold on. I'll tell you. The Jets.
The Jets pick at 10. Okay.
Yeah, the Jets pick at 10. So, provided if Jaden Daniels falls to 8, he's going to be a Falcon. He's going to be a Falcon so fast, it's not even going to he'll be on a plane with Big Boy and Jermaine Dupri. It's going to be he's going to be at ATL till he dies. That's how it's going to be.
Well, if you talk to Merrill Hodge, Caleb Williams, and Drake May aren't even going to get drafted at this point. If you talk to him, good God.
He loves Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he does.
Yeah. We did not get him on at the Super Bowl, but he was walking around. I saw him there quite a bit, a couple different days. But Jaden Daniels is going to get drafted, I would say, at 8 or above, and I'm
no doubt
strongly thinking it's going to be above 8. I don't think he's going to fall past 4. So if you are one of those teams and you don't get that quarterback, I'd have to really believe in J.J. McCarthy or the health of Michael Penix or what Bo Nix's upside is. And I love Bo Nix. Garrett, do I love Bo Nix?
Big Bo Nix fan.
I'm a big Bo Nix fan. Love watching Bo Nix play college football. That does not mean that Bo Nix can play professional football. And that's the case for all these guys. Right. But I think that those teams are in an interesting spot. The Falcons have kind of built out the rest of their team pretty well. They just need a quarterback and a head coach that's going to make it all work.
Yeah.
But the Broncos and Sean Payton in year 2, that one's very interesting to me. And what they do. What would you do? Because I think they got to move on from Russell Wilson just so they can get a completely fresh start.
Yeah.
I
agree. I agree with that entirely. Yeah. It would be a very awkward situation, I think, if you brought Russell Wilson back at this point. It seems like that relationship just does not work anymore. It cannot be salvaged. So, but just because that is the case does not mean to me that the Broncos should stay at 12 and draft a J.J. McCarthy, thinking that they've got their franchise guy. Because to be perfectly honest, I'm not a believer. I'm not a believer in J.J. McCarthy. I'm with you with Bo Nix. I love Bo Nix. I just don't know if there's enough there that's going to translate into a consistent week-to-week starter at league level. Penix, I love the accuracy. I love the accuracy of Michael Penix. The injury history, like you said, there's just something that's just preventing me from. Yeah, I like you, but I can't say I love you just yet. And because
12,
of that,
like 12,
yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing.
So
you got to pay the first round money. If it doesn't work out, you set yourself back again. It's a tough position to be in for Denver.
Yeah, if I'm Denver, and provided like I can't trade up and I can't do any of that stuff, I'm stuck at 12. Yeah, and none of my guys are there. I'm just gonna, sign Jameis Winston or somebody like that and have him battle it out with Jared Stidham and see how I can deal with it. Maybe I go sign Kirk Cousins on a short-term deal.
You took the words right out. That to me feels like a team that's not being talked about enough because George Payton, who used to be in Minnesota now in Denver, that's a team that I feel like is not being talked about enough in terms of a Kirk Cousins marriage.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. Garrett, what do you do if you're Denver? Stuck there at 12?
Oh, man. I really don't know. Honestly, I haven't paid that much close attention to the NFL or the Broncos.
Well, here's the thing. The Broncos used to be one of those like fun organizations to follow. Yeah. They are the vanilla Greek yogurt of the NFL refrigerator right now. Like
they're in no man's land right now.
Yeah. If it's the only thing I've got to eat, I guess I have to. But
that's a perfect way of saying it.
It's not my first choice. And it's weird. Yeah, it is very odd. Of course, any talk about Jaden Daniels not being a Washington Commander at 2 for Garrett is kind of a non-starter.
Yeah, I don't. He's got to come to Washington. He's got to come to Washington. I mean, fulfill my destiny.
Yeah.
Over Drake May. Drake May.
Here's the thing.
Yes, over Drake May.
He'd take Drake May. I do think, though, that, if it came down to it and they got, an honest phone call, Drake May kidnapped my daughter, that would be Garrett.
I mean, he's not much different than Sam Howell. It's the same stuff. I've seen it. I've seen it.
I think I'm with Garrett here. I'm not, Drake May, I know Drake May was missing a lot of weapons this year, too. I don't want that to be lost in the conversation for Drake May. But I think Drake May's got a lot of talent. I just don't. He's another one of those guys where I'm just like, I like you, but I don't love you.
Look,
Jaden Daniels I love him.
Love him.
It's just what's not to love. What's not to love with Jaden Daniels?
Yeah, if you can get him to stop leaping into defensive ends,
that's the thing. Yes,
if you can get him to stop doing that, But I saw a really interesting. Rich Eisen had Jeffrey Wright, actor Jeffrey Wright, on the show. He's in American Fiction, is the Oscar kind of movie he's in right now. He plays Commissioner Gordon in the most recent run of Batman films with Robert Pattinson. He's very good.
I was just about to say he's Felix Leiter in the James Bond movies from recent years. Yes,
and he is mother and him lifelong Washington season ticket holders. Okay. And so he got a chance to meet Josh Harris, and he said, "Look, I'm telling him all these ideas, this is what I got to do." And Josh Harris's brother and his brother went to camp together. So they grew up, and knowing each other a little bit. So he talks to Josh Harris. He's like, "Oh, you should do this for the fans, this for the fans, this for the fans." And then he's like, "Look, I'll do all of that. But right now, the plumbing doesn't work in the stadium, so I got to fix that first." God. So that's how bad it is in Washington. He's like, "Dude, I've got to get the plumbing fixed. Nothing's up to code anywhere. You gotta before I start revitalizing the fan experience, they have to be able to flush the toilet."
That's a good start. That'd be a good start. Yeah.
Can you imagine somebody going to Daniel Snyder and being like, "Hey, none of the toilets in the stadium work," and he's like, "Nobody needs to pee. Come back.
Just come on.
Come back to me when you got a real problem."
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So
to answer your question though, Paul, with Denver, funny enough, Atlanta, I think Atlanta's in a position I think they could still trade up. I think Atlanta's got enough ammunition. If they want, they could trade up. Denver, I think, it feels like from 8 to 12 feels like a million miles away. For them to try to make a move. I think Denver's in a lot of trouble.
For those teams right there, I'll tell you, best player available.
Yeah, without
best
question.
Player available. Don't think about quarterback or whatever. If the quarterback is the best player available, take him. But if it's a defensive end or a defensive tackle or a linebacker, then take that guy.
Yeah, and this is my biggest fear, being in Minnesota, this is my biggest fear with the Vikings, that at 11, they're going to do something desperate. And when you do something desperate and chase the quarterback in the first round, more often than not, you're going to get yourself in trouble. And I worry I'm not convinced that that's what the Vikings are going to do at 11, but I worry that they're feeling the heat in terms of finding the guy, and it has to be now. So I worry for that for Minnesota.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, real quick before the end of the show, and Garrett, I want your opinion on this. Kyle Filipowski, Wake Forest storms the court against Duke. He's hurt. We don't know really how long he's going to be out, but it was not good. It was not good. Yeah. It is completely Wake Forest University's fault that they were unprepared for this. There's no security around, nothing. If you're going to storm the court, you better be prepared to do it. Now, our old friend Jerome Tang is at Kansas State now.
Yeah.
Begs. The students not to storm the court. Like, they, earlier this year, there was a very, just saying, please don't. Because I think he's right. You should expect to win the games at home. Expect to win. And I had a debate with a Baylor fan who runs a Baylor website, Peter Pope, great guy, the other day and he said it's because I hate fun. But he said, I'm glad Baylor, I can't remember who they beat, but he's like, I'm glad the fans didn't storm the court. I'm like, bro, they won the national championship 3 years ago.
Yeah.
You don't storm the court if you've won a natty, especially recently. Like, not a natty like my grandpa was here when they won in 45. Not that one. Like, won the first one post-World War II. We gave the Jerry's what for, and then we won the national title. Like, that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is, especially if you were there, if you remember it, like, you shouldn't be storming the court. Duke doesn't storm the court. Kansas doesn't really storm the court. Kentucky doesn't storm the court. Arizona doesn't storm the court because they expect to win. And so if you expect to win, you shouldn't storm the court. That's my belief. Now, look, if you are, St. John's and you beat Villanova and it's been a long time, like, all right, you're finally good again. You get a court storming. That's okay. But they've got to make some rules on this because the internet adds to it. Like, kids see other kids storming the court, and they're like, I want to do that at our place. I think they need to know it's much cooler not to, because it is much more of a passive-aggressive dig at someone to be like, oh, we expected this. We don't care how good you think you are. We knew that you would come in and lose. You whiny little B words. That's what I never even
thought of it that way. I never even thought of it that way. That is actually very interesting, because here's the deal. It's not like we all kind of know the metrics. We all kind of know it. Like, earlier this season, I was watching my alma mater, San Jose State, who has never been good at basketball, ever. They gave San Diego State all it could handle in a game at home. And I'm sitting here thinking, if they win this game, I might jump through the TV and rush the court myself.
Yeah, I get it.
Like, with there's context and situation. And, like, man, I after this happened with Duke and Wake Forest, I was thinking to myself, but there's going to be a rule tomorrow.
And here's the deal. Wake Forest has beaten Duke 100 times.
That's right. That's right.
They've beaten Duke. They're rivals. They've beaten Duke.
It's not like Wake Forest has never been good before.
No, it's like they're like, dude, we have a Wendy's. Like, everybody has a Wendy's, dude.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Garrett. Okay. First of all, we'll get Garrett in a second. Jack is over here now. And
good.
Jack, he gave me the "you're an old cranky man" look on this one, and I don't think that that's true in this regard. I'm trying to teach the youth of America how to really dig down on their opponents. As you know, I'm very against the overrated cheer because it belittles what you've just done. It doesn't make any sense. Court storming is the next level above that, where you don't even say anything, where you're just like, you suck and we all knew it, and we're going to sit here and let you go like they weren't even that excited that they beat us. That hurts. So, Jack, your opinion on this.
The overrated cheer is stupid, but it's like, there's fun in it. So I can understand why it's like, hey, don't do that. Storming the court is just fun. It's not stupid. As long as you individually don't do anything unbelievably stupid, like, I mean, just have fun. If you are a ranked team, you shouldn't be storming the court. If you won the national championship in the last 3 years, you probably shouldn't be storming the court. If you are unranked and haven't won a national championship in the last couple of years, and you beat a ranked team, a highly ranked team. Like I put it at like top 10. If you're storming the court for like a number 12 win,
look,
maybe I question that.
Jack, you and I agree more, I think, on this than you think.
I think we do. No, I do think we do.
I think we're over. Like, I think you need to save them. They need to be special.
They need to be special.
Yeah,
but let kids have some fun.
Oh no, I'm for the kids having fun if it makes sense. Garrett, where are you on this?
I'm kind of like in between. I think it's got to be a valuable win. At the same time, though, if you're the opponent, if you're the opposing coach, and you can tell like this, we're about to get stormed on, I think there's got to be certain. And it's hard to, but if you could let the opposing team get off the floor, then let everybody come on. That's because eventually somebody's going to get hurt. We know it's coming.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. But even worse, it's going to come. It's inevitable. I just don't trust large groups of people. That's just me.
The best practice is going to be, in the end, have a security member, whether it's Rhino or police,
right,
who has a man assignment on the away team. You go out and you protect that one kid. And then you get everyone in behind that wall that you're going to create along the sideline to allow the handshake line.
Yeah.
And at the end of the handshake line, team shouldn't be turning around. They should be going out the tunnel that's immediately closest to there and then finding their way through the back tunnels back to their locker room.
Or just skip the handshake line. It'd just be like a mutual thing. Like, hey, we understand the circumstance. We don't have to go through this.
Yes, that can also work. But
believe me, they can do a handshake line like in the bowels of most stadiums and be like, hey, sorry, we just wanted to.
The solution is have a man for each guy on the opposing team that's on the court. So 5 guys, only 5. That doesn't seem like a huge outlay of humanity. And then build that wall along the sideline. Whether or not there's a handshake line, just keep the sideline that the benches are on clear.
Yeah, exactly. No. And Pierre, eventually somebody's going to hurt their own player and they're going to feel really stupid about it.
Yeah.
Like
100%.
Like, believe me, you're not going to get one Wake Forest student, good Baptist school that it is, sad that one of them stomped on Cal Filipowski because they're going to be like, yeah, we did it. Like this immature kids do. And it's really bad. But when your best player out on the floor, could be hurt and like that could affect Duke in the tournament, like it's something that they have to get under control. And Wake Forest, look, if Tennessee is going to get fined for their field stormings, like Wake Forest, like no player, there was a player from Alabama. Was it Jermaine Burton? Jermaine Burton got in a little bit of a kerfuffle a couple years ago. But other than that, like nobody got hurt. They just kind of,
you have to protect the student athletes first. Like that has to be the first priority. Like I know that's easy to say when you have a sea of people like storming toward you, but there has to be a better way to protect the student athletes first.
Absolutely. All right, Pierre, have a great week, buddy. We'll see you next Monday. We've got back-to-back Pierres. It's like sweeps. Like sometimes during sweeps where you you get a Seinfeld on Thursday and then a special one on Monday.
Something a news consultant would say. Indeed, yes. So something a news consultant would say.
I know the buzzwords, so I can very easily sneak in, and you should just.
I'm telling you,
just start dropping around your have you guys considered Catalina Consulting? They're very.
I can't wait till we bring you in.
Yeah,
and I get called into this meeting, and they have no idea.
Here's the thing: find out what normal consultants charge. I'll undercut the crap out of it. I'll just be like, oh, they're charging you this much money? Psst. No, listen, for half price, I'll do this. And
100%.
Yeah, I'll come in and listen, morning news, you got to get better at doing tragedy. Evening news, the weatherman's not that funny.
Yeah, correct.
We have no more listen, a weather pun and the sports guy gets to kick the shit out of him. That's what.
Hey, fair. That would make good ratings, I think.
Yeah, you put the sports guy just one slapping him for better get you. That would through the roof.
It sounds different for me, and for whatever reason, local news doesn't like different. Go figure. I don't know why.
People are you watching this channel right now? The sports guy's in total control. It's awesome.
Absolutely. I'm all for it, my friend.
He's got 14 minutes of show. We skipped local election coverage for him.
And look at the ratings.
Yeah.
Look at the ratings. The proof is in the pudding.
Yeah. Nobody cares who the ombudsman is.
No. We've had enough of that.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. All right. Pierre, have a great week. We've got legend. Pierre knows this guy on the show today. Legendary Dallas sportscaster Dale Hansen on the show today.
Can't wait to tune in.
Dale Hansen, a legend.
Yeah.
This is 365 Sports.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications